Join channel here over at SubScribeStar. So keep in mind, your money is the oxygen that runs this engine for everything, and it doesn't have to. That's the stone cold bottom line. If you've seen stuff that gets supported and you don't like it, you just don't have to support it, and it will go away. It's just that easy. You don't. The problem is the reason why they're successful is FOMO, fear of missing out. But once you recognize it, it doesn't take long to get over it. And then you look at the stuff they're putting out, and you're like, oh, these people are just dirty. It makes me want to. I feel dirty just reading about these people. And you look into the eyes of someone like this, and it's like they're in madness lies. So Sweet Baby redesigns its website to remove client and game lists, as well as to hide its woke agenda by Mr. John Trent. Weird. You'd think if you were proud of the work you're doing, the Sweet Baby, Black Girl Gamers, you'd want to be upfront about it. And to be fair, I think one of the companies did request that because they knew that this brand has become toxic, so they didn't want the name associated with them. Well, the next step is to just actually not be associated with them. But you'll always be able to go read in the credits to see who worked on the game, and the first person to buy that game can put that out there. So good luck with this. So the globalist political commissars start hiding their tracks, and in case you don't follow video games, and ultimately there is a time before video games. You don't have to play video games. You don't have to support this industry. There's a lot of other places to put your money. A new T23 might be a good idea. Anyway, so people make these games, then they get advertising and sell them. It doesn't sound like rocket science, but what happens instead is an example of the laughable Weimar that we are in, the dystopian present, where you have this globalist push coming from these corporations, but the normal, not perverted degenerates are dipping out on all this kind of left-wing stuff. So these woke companies hire these toxic left-wing bullshies to make the games super duper anti-white, misandrist, and gay. You can see it with Concord and Dustborn. A couple people did some walkthroughs or playthroughs of those games. That looked like a painful 4 hours because that is stunning and brave. The people don't actually buy the stuff, but that's only because they're all Nazis, which is probably going to come as a surprise to these people dealing with video games. These nut jobs think like Nerdrotic and Yellow Flash and all those like YouTube channels. If they could put them in gulags, they absolutely would. So these Sweet Babies and Black Girl Gamers are like the Anita Sarkeesian, Zoe Quinn types. And when was Gamergate, like 2013-ish around? They're just grifters. But the thing is, they can only exist because the companies hire them, so they're just useful idiots. But in their minds, they're the main players. They think this woke beliefs are mostly originating from them. Reality, they're just products of a toxic Frankfurt school. They're given an antenna that is tuned to feminist communism, and then they're subject to a lifetime of propaganda on that frequency. Then they get paid to regurgitate that nonsense, and they think they're Martin Luther with a nail gun. Then, when someone who actually lived through it tells their story, they start tripping over themselves because they don't know how to deal with reality. Every once in a while, there's this Russian guy who will talk to commie kids today, and he'll tell them about the Russian experience with communism. Not it's like, hey, any system's going to have issues, but communism makes a lot of well-fertilized fields. Anyway, so Sweet Baby is paid to put Larry Fink, Schwab type of WEF cancer in games. Usually this just translates into making the blondes the bad guys, and they hate blonde hair and blue-eyed people. And the pox will be obese lesbians with blue hair. There's a lot of the bullshit found family concept because they want you cut off from your family and dependent on the state. They want to, I don't know if it's in the UK or something, like register your gardens so they can ban the gardens. And they say it's for greenhouse gases or global warming or something. The reality is they just want you dependent on the state so they can punish you for wrongthink if any is detected. But they want centralized power because they know that they can subvert and corrupt and control things. They know that rootless people will just go along with whatever the media tells them is true. Anyway, so people start noticing these toxic, left-wing, anti-white, racist, harmful themes in games, and they wondered why these filthy globalist parasites were marginalizing and oppressing a disenfranchised and othered people. Why are these game companies so hateful to the most oppressed gamers? Then some guys on Twitter noticed that these woke political commissar companies were associated with the poisonous games, and then looked into the collection of mentally ill freaks and started making lists of the games that Sweet Baby was sodomizing and giving monkeypox and AIDS, so the marginalized and oppressed gamers wouldn't be further targeted by anti-white racist tropes, misandry, hashtag sell your systems, and buy another rifle. The thing is, with using all these asshole buzzwords, you realize how manipulative it is to put marginalized in every other sentence. It's like saying right after you make a point and then just moving on, because it frames your interaction as if the person doesn't, if they don't disagree openly, then they must agree with whatever asinine statement you just made. The Young Turks, who's the girl? I forget the girl's name. Her and the guy, Cenk Uygur and his sidekick girl, they do that all the time, right? I make some asinine statement that you definitely don't agree with, and it's just a conclusion, and there's no argument, and there's no logical foundation, right? And then move on to another asinine statement. And if you're talking to them, you go, wait a minute, you point it out to them and see if you can slow it down. Anyway, it's like telling someone your pronouns because you're forcing them to tell you that gendered language derives from your immutable sex. So it's a way of the left to manipulate you, unless you just stop them and say, that sounds like Bolshevik nonsense, which then causes a conflict, and then you have a mentally ill person in tears because you won't validate their mental illness. So he created a list of these, the Sweet Baby Detected and Cabritas, a list of these woke games, and the commie kids lost their freaking minds. Whenever you shine a light on what they're doing and what they say they're proud of, like Richard Meyer with diversity in comics, the pushback he got from the people the comics he was talking about was like death threats. It was totally disproportionate to a guy sitting and talking about comics, and you realize, like, oh, you're dealing with mentally ill people who don't like their ideologies, their religion criticized. Because when somebody challenged their developmentally disabled worldview, they panic because they have beliefs that the globalist media and universities installed in them, but they never arrived at the conclusions themselves, so they have an emotional connection to the argument, but they don't have a logical one. Sweet Baby Detected simply said that the buyer deserves to be informed and not tricked into buying this Bolshevik cancer, because diversity, feminism, anti-whiteism are not the gamer's values. All those things are cringe and soy, and if you're paying, $70 for a game, you should be fully informed, and the SJW kids took this personally, and for some reason this Karen from Kotaku got herself involved, Alyssa Mercanto, because she's a childish weirdo who needs to fill that hole inside her with virtue signaling over whatever latest soup of the day her masters tell her to obsess over. And she likes the attention. She's on Twitter all the time, and I mean that's like, she posts a lot of selfies of herself. Like, I'm oh so ironic. I'm the 31-year-old San Francisco punk rock girl. I have tattoos on my fingers, and like, I'm so edgy, but it's pseudo edgy. They'll never actually speak truth to power, because then suddenly they'd be in our boats. They're safe edgy. Comedian, get up on stage and talk about Christians and white men and Republicans. Am I right? Like, that's been done to death for 50 years. Anyway, your money is the oxygen for all this cancer. Become an active, if you're going to play games and support this industry, they don't want you to talk about what they're doing online. In fact, they released a couple of big tweets where they say things, if you don't like something, don't talk about it. Like, what the fuck? What are you talking about? It's the point of social media. This is a billion-dollar industry making garbage, and you want to protect these corporations from people on social media talking about it. What happened to the left wing? It's like, well, they know that these games and movies and comics and whatever are pushing Bolshevik values. It's all just Frankfurt School, Saul Alinsky 101. So they get on Twitter and say, don't criticize the billion-dollar industry companies. It's freaking bizarre when you point it out to them. They go, yeah, but you're a Chad Nazi, or like whatever. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys all next episode.